that vernier mode for the autopilot. So it won't even use those little 25-pound thrusters, the 4 in the aft or the 2 in the forward. They're not available for use. The DAP won't try to command them, and they won't be fired. We'll be in a different digital autopilot mode. We'll be in the primary reaction control system, or a version of the PRCS called Alt-DAP. And that will be the mode that we're in for attitude control while we're doing the different rotations and translations that are necessary as part of the rendezvous profile and docking procedures. I don't think I would use words like tricky or difficult or anything like that. I would use words like alternate, backup. It's just a different mode of the autopilot that we use. It has a slightly different response because it's using the larger thrusters instead of the small, fine attitude control thrusters that the verniers are. However, that's exactly the reason the crew trains to it, is so that they understand how the vehicle is going to respond in that mode. And so they're trained to use the other autopilot modes. There'll be a little bit more propellant usage overall as a result of doing a loss of verniers, rendezvous, and docking. Beyond that, it should be no impact for us.
Thank you. And lastly, you mentioned 9 wing leading edge sensor indications. Is that the normal number typically?
I would say that's maybe a little lower, if anything, than what we've seen on previous flights. It's and we, at this point, Marshall, we call them triggers, which is to say that there's a potential for something to be there in the way of an indication of an actual impact. Most of them occurred in the 100-second to 120-second range, which historically has been where we get a lot of ringing modes in the wing as we go through those final stages of higher dynamic pressure before we get to staging of the solid rocket boosters and get into second stage. So it's if anything, it's a little lower than normal, and mostly in the wing ringing time frame that we saw these triggers in this case.
Thank you. That's all from me.
Okay, thanks, Marcia. And the last person I have is Todd Halverson with Florida Today. Todd, are you on?
Yeah, Cal, thanks. Todd Halverson of Florida Today. Leroy, I was wondering if you could characterize for me whether the actual piloting task will be any more or less or equally challenging as it would have been without burns, or with burns, I should say. And I'm also curious, in the alt-DAP mode, will the crew on board sense, the primary jet firings a bit more than they might have otherwise? Might there be some, like, cannonballs going off? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, Todd, it's, let's see, the first question, I would characterize it as being slightly more challenging simply because of the different autopilot modes that the crew trains to and flies with. They've certainly done more training where we have the vernier autopilot mode available to us than cases where they don't have it. So just due to more repetition, I would say that it's slightly more challenging to fly in the loss of verniers mode. Certainly it is a very capable mode. It's obviously completely certified, and the crew is very well trained to fly in this DAP mode, so I'm not concerned about it. But I would characterize it, if I were going to, as maybe being slightly more challenging. And then on your second question, the crew will notice the difference between being in vernier attitude control as opposed to primary, whether it's primary PRCS or alt-DAP. They both use the large jets, 800-some pound thrusters, is noticeable in the crew cabin. And so it won't make any difference in terms of what they do or don't do, but I've been told that when you fire the primary thrusters, in particular the ones in the nose I'm talking about because they're close to the crew cabin, it's a noticeable, maybe even impressive event.
Let's see, is that it, Todd?
Yeah, one other one. I just noticed in the execute package earlier today that at the very back of it, it seemed like there was some, instructions on who does what during emergencies on board the dock, shuttle, and station during the 17A 128 dock phase, and it seemed to me that it seemed like a little late for something like that to be coming up. I'm just wondering if that's unusual and if there's anything different going on with the way an emergency would be handled on any other mission. Thanks.
Yeah, Todd, as you know, we do have standard emergency procedures on board the space station. As the configuration of the station changes a little bit, as well as numbers of crew members and things of that nature, those procedures are tweaked and slightly modified. I think what you saw in this case was a very minor update to what the crew has already trained to and what they already understand, both of the shuttle and the station crew on board the station already, what they've already trained to and what they understand to be the emergency procedures. So this was what I would characterize as a very minor tweak. It's certainly not anything out of the norm of what we're used to doing.
Okay, that's it for the phone bridge. We're here to wrap up with final here from Bill.
Just 3 quick ones. Have you guys ever done a primary RCS rendezvous and docking before?
No.
Thanks. And I want to make sure I understand this. I know on a vernier rendezvous and docking, attitude control is automatic. I mean, the commander's not doing that. The digital autopilot's doing it. And he's just doing the propulsive get to the station part in the corridor. Is that the same with Alt-B? If you're on primaries, that's automatic in terms of attitude control, and he's still just worrying about the keeping it in the corridor?
Right. You're talking about the difference between translational maneuvering and just holding an attitude. And there's no difference in terms of the autopilot will hold attitude when you're in a certain DAP configuration to hold attitude. Whether it's verniers or PRCS or alt, it will still hold attitude. The crew does, however, do some rotational attitude changes in addition to translation during the rendezvous prox ops. But when you're not in a rotational or translational mode that's manual, the DAP is automatically holding the prescribed attitude.
Thanks. And my last question was, I know you don't, the SRB photos help with this when you get the cameras back, but intertank, do y'all have any, did your umbilical well show you anything with the intertank foam and how it performed?
Good question. I'm glad you asked. The very preliminary again, obviously, but more to come. We had the intertank look very good. It, as you know, we had several areas of losses on the intertank from the previous mission, and the intertank looked very good. We had one loss that I believe was in the intertank flange area, and so the folks will be looking at that. That would be a cryo pumping kind of loss in all likelihood, so more to come on that one, but that would be very much in family with what we've been seeing on all these missions. And that is to say specifically not at all what we saw on ET-131 from STS-127, where we think we really had a processing issue with the intertank. So intertank looked really good.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have. Just a few programming notes. Obviously, the docking upcoming shortly after 8 o'clock this evening Central Time. Hatch opening will follow a couple hours after that. And Nicole Stott and Tim Copra will swap places. She'll become a station crew member. He a shuttle crew member. That's somewhere in the 10:30 to 11 p.m. time frame when they swap their Soyuz seat liners, that officially marking their swap. 11 p.m. tonight is a mission status briefing. That will be with Tony Sakachi coming off shift with the lead team over in mission control. So look for that. Crew goes to bed 4:30 tomorrow morning. And highlights, of course, from all of the docking activities will begin at 5 a.m. Shortly after crew sleep begins. And then we'll be back here for the next mission management team briefing tomorrow afternoon, or roughly 3 o'clock Central Time. So stay tuned for all those events on NASA TV, and of course the television schedule's out there so you can look for that. Any updates we post rather quickly, so stay tuned and keep